I've been wanting to make this video for so long about my journey moving from Connecticut to Miami by myself in my 20s. This video is especially going to be for my people who have always wanted to make this decision, even if it's not Miami, just moving out of your hometown, moving somewhere brand new that looks nothing like where you came from. Let this be your sign to do it. It has genuinely already been the most transformative experience of my life. And so, just a little bit of background about why I decided to make this decision. So, I grew up in a really small town. I grew up in Connecticut. Where I come from looks nothing like Miami. And that's kind of why I wanted to make this decision. Growing up, I felt like I didn't really fit in with a lot of people. I felt very different. And I really just felt like the environment that I was raised in was just not a reflection of who I truly am as a person. And I wanted more for my life. Honestly, I wanted a different life than the one that I was shown. And I'm super grateful for where I grew up. It built who I am. And I wouldn't have been able to embrace this experience without growing up there and being raised in such a different environment. And so as I was growing up, I always kind of dreamed of living in a bigger city, living in a fast paced area where there is just so much going on, where there is just so much opportunity, so many different types of people, just pursuing different paths in life. That's exactly what I wanted for myself. I didn't want the traditional small town life. It just wasn't for me. I had a different expectation for my future self. And so my younger self always kind of prayed to make this decision. For a long time, I felt like I didn't really have what it takes, especially not pursuing it by myself. And so from a young age, I always knew that I wanted more. I always saw more for myself. And as I got older, I started to realize the only way that I was going to be able to create the life that I wanted was to challenge myself and to really push my comfort zone out of everything that is very familiar to me. And I started to realize that meant changing my environment. It meant moving out of my hometown, moving somewhere new that was going to be a culture shock for me. That is what I was craving because the type of life that I wanted to build, I knew that I had to put myself in the environment that it was already happening. I kind of just concluded the fact that I needed to live in an ecosystem, which meant like living somewhere like LA, New York, Miami, just places that really reflected the version of myself that I wanted to be in my life. So in my earlier 20s, I visited here probably more than 5 times before I decided to move here because I wanted to feel the energy. And I knew when I visited, I was like, yes, this is it. This is where I want to live. This is where I want to be in my 20s because I grew up near New York, so I kind of knew what it was like. I visited LA a few times and I kind of decided that Miami was a middle ground for me because I wanted slight change at first. It wasn't too crazy from where I grew up, too different, but it was different enough where it was going to push me as a person. And so I always knew that it was going to change my life. I knew that it was going to be an experience just because of how different it was from the environment that I was raised in. Initially, when I moved here, I got an Airbnb because I wanted to feel it out. I didn't want to commit to anything. I stayed in an Airbnb for probably like 4 to 5 months, allowed me to kind of settle in, feel how it would be if I actually lived here before I actually commit to it. And so it gave me time to look for a job, meet some people, go out and explore different areas so that I could think about where I actually wanted to root myself here in an apartment. So I ended up getting an apartment near Brickell to start. I live in downtown now, but I wanted to start over there. And I'm going to be honest, the first few years that I lived here, it was kind of challenging for me. It was such an identity shift at once that I felt like I didn't really know who I was. I lost a lot of parts of myself. I lost a lot of friends. It was just a huge transition for me. And the first few years, it was just so isolating. And I feel like now I'm starting to get to the point where I'm settling in, but there was a time, I'm not gonna lie, that it was kind of hard for me to picture my future here. It was hard for me to kind of settle in just because it was so different than where I grew up, but also I didn't really know a lot of people. It was just such a change all at once. It really pushed my comfort zone, which is what I wanted, but it also was just a lot for one person to go through by themselves. So it was really hard for me at first. So that's kind of why I wanted to talk about this because I'm not going to lie to anyone that this experience is 100% easy to go through. I think whenever someone changes their environment so much, especially coming from a small town to a bigger city like this, it is going to be a big culture shock. And that is what I went through. I knew it was going to change my life, but I didn't really know in what way. And it definitely kind of made me lose this identity that I always had, letting go of a lot of familiar things, whether it was the habits that I had, the mindset, even friendships. I kind of lost everything that was just really familiar to who I was growing up. And I didn't even realize that that was kind of what I was craving, because whenever we want to move out of our hometown or somewhere new, it's kind of all about just wanting to reinvent ourselves. And so that is what I did, basically moving here. But when I was going through all that, that's kind of what came with reinventing myself. And although I'm waking up in my dream city every single day, there are a lot of parts of my life that were very questionable. I didn't really know who I was anymore. It was kind of challenging for me. And so a lot of it was just a loss of identity, because the experience was just so much shifting all at once. It was a lot for me to take in. And so I thought it was the environment. And so I looked around, I was like, maybe Miami is just not meant for me. Maybe this isn't the city that I stay in. It was just meant to happen in my life so that I could figure out who I actually am and what I want in my life away from everything that I've always known, right? And so I actually decided to step away. I was like, you know what? I need a breather. I need to step away from this. This is a lot for me. So I moved to the Tampa area for a little bit. And I'm going to be honest, like after I moved, I feel like I regretted it a little, because I was like, wait, like it wasn't Miami. It was just that I didn't want to go through the uncomfortable growth of reinventing myself, of starting over, of building a new life. And so when I was living in the Tampa area, it was very underwhelming for me. I did not like it. It was just very different. And it didn't feel like an ecosystem to me. It didn't feel like a lot of expansion. And that's just my personal opinion. Some other people like that area, but I just knew it wasn't for me. And so after living there for about a year and a half, I decided to move back to Miami to give it a second chance to see if it was really the area, or maybe it was just the way I was approaching my life. Maybe it was just the way that I was living and not really embracing this experience. So I decided to move back here. I got an Airbnb again for a few months because I didn't want to commit to it. I didn't want to feel stuck here. So throughout those months that I was living in Airbnb, I decided, you know what, I'm going to level up my life. I'm going to do what it takes to really embrace this experience. So I definitely doubled down on improving a lot of areas of my life. And I will say, by doing that, it definitely changed the experience that I had here. And I realized that living in Miami is somewhere that you need money. It's somewhere that you need friends, a community. Otherwise, it's going to feel really lonely, because it can be a very isolating city to live in if you don't have aspects of your life that you enjoy looking forward to. And so within 6 months of living here the second time, after I was staying in an Airbnb, I put myself ahead a lot that I was able to move into my dream apartment. I live in a high rise in Miami, which is something I've always wanted for myself. I wake up every single day, I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe this is my view. I cannot believe this is my apartment. But I will say that it took some time for me to get there. And it was not just something that I easily stepped into. I kind of realized that Miami is somewhere that you definitely need a plan. You need to have a fulfilling life here. Otherwise, from my personal experience, it is very lonely to live here, because I didn't really know anyone. I felt lost. I didn't really know what my path was living here or what my intentions were. I kind of just jumped into it without having like a long-term plan. And I personally believe that moving here, I especially never wanted to just move here for the lifestyle or the partying. I just wanted to move here to really push myself out of my comfort zone and have goals outside of just the nightlife here, outside of just the actual party scene. So I was definitely right to approach it that way, into not making that my main priority, but instead being able to build a community. And that's something that I really focused on the second time that I moved here. I focused on building better habits for myself, showing up in a better way in my life, just being healthier overall, not isolating myself, and really opening myself up to building a community. I've started to go on solo dates. I started to push my comfort zone a little bit more and go out. They have a lot of like walk groups here. So I've been signing up for those, just really trying to embrace this the best that I possibly can. And now, this being the second time that I've lived here, I feel like I'm in an entirely different season of my life. And it's allowed me to actually enjoy myself more. It's allowed me to really embrace this experience, even if it's not forever. Even if I don't decide to stay here and build my life here, I want to make sure that I'm embracing the experience that I always dreamt of having. I mean, I live in my dream city. I live in my dream apartment. I might as well enjoy it, especially in my 20s. I need to embrace this. These are the years of my life that are so crucial for self growth and expanding as a person and really building a version of myself that I'm proud to be. There's so many ambitious people here. There's so many different walks of life. Everyone just takes care of themselves in the highest regard. And that's something I want to constantly be around. I want to be around people that are raising the bar, that are becoming more successful, really embracing the best version of themselves. And I will say, living here every single day, I feel like I can't slack. I have to hold myself to a higher standard. I have to be accountable and disciplined because everyone around here, that's what they're doing. Everyone around here is very fit. They're all making money. They're living their best life. And I've especially learned that it's so important to be around people who are living the life that you want, that can show you that it's possible for you, but also to show you how to show up in your own life. That's something I'm learning is being around all these people who have the results that I want. It pushes me every single day. It holds me to a higher standard. It makes me constantly question, how can I raise the bar? How can I show up better in my life? How can I become a better version of myself than I was yesterday? I especially think growing up in a small town, it kind of allowed me to be a smaller version of myself, someone who doesn't really push themselves past their limits and just becomes very comfortable because a lot of people in that environment, like I said, they live the same life, they pursue the same goals, they all have the same vision, which isn't very expansive. And it was just too small for what I saw for myself. I had a bigger vision in my life and I wanted to be able to give myself permission to go after it, even if it was uncomfortable. And now I live somewhere where success and achieving your goals and becoming the fittest, healthiest, like hottest version of yourself is just the bare minimum. I think it's all about putting yourself in the same room as the version of yourself that you envision yourself becoming. If we want more, if we want to achieve more, and especially have more, we need to go out and see more. We need to expand ourselves past what we're comfortable. And so I'm proud to say that I went after what I wanted in my life. Even if the people around me didn't necessarily see the same vision that I did. And I allowed myself to have this experience. I allowed myself to go after it, even if it was just very different than where I grew up. And every single day, I am growing, I am expanding, I am stepping into the version of myself that I have always wanted to become just because I was willing to bet on myself. And if you want to make this decision for yourself, go after it, push your comfort zone, leave your hometown. It is the best experience that you will ever go through. If you've ever wanted to make this decision, I want you to put in the comments where you've been thinking about moving compared to where you currently live. We are on the journey of becoming the best version of ourselves, reaching our potential, and especially stepping into the life that we know we are capable of building. So if you want to level up and reach your potential with me, then I will see you in the next video.